hunger to learn about something you don't know sometimes falsely makes you believe everything you hear. You want a story, boy? I'll give you a story. I have under my command 500 6-foot flat-nosed geezers, and my job was debt collecting. And I'd go to any length to retrieve a debt, right? Any length. My name's Dave Courtney. Over the years, I've been associated with some of the most notorious villains ever known, and that's why I'm known as the Yellow Pages of crime. If you really want to know about the London crime scene, then I'll tell you. But trust me, it ain't all glamorous. I'll take you around some of the nastiest places and tell you about some of the naughtiest villains London has ever seen. The Crays, Frankie Fraser, Ronnie Biggs, they're all household names now, and they demand respect, and rightly so. From the courtrooms to the prisons, and the crime scenes and the graves, I'll tell you what really happened. The truth is this, you are born naughty, right? I could not stand up in court and say there was no green areas for me to play on, the classrooms are too packed, the milk stopped, so I robbed post offices. You know, you cannot blame anything other than it's in your genes. You are born naughty. Had I been born to parents that would send me to Oxford, I'd have been Nick Leeson. You know what I mean? You don't, I suppose there is certain things that could help you along if you were that way, you know? But you're definitely born naughty. They, you know, these do-gooders run around and try and find excuses for you, like they do in prison for rapists and child molesters. Now, they don't go to prison, they go to hospitals, because they're not criminals, they're ill, and they try to find some reason. And if you look hard enough, you'll find a reason to do anything if you look hard enough. And actually, the truth is this, because we have lived the life that we've lived, and we know the unpleasantries of it, right? And so do our children. So if you was a kid across the road, you might actually want to be Dave Courtney or whatever. But if you was in here, lived here, you know, my children have seen, they have actually been held hostage with machine gun people in foreign countries by other gangsters. They have seen me dragged out of bed, handcuffed and beat to pieces. They have stood at the end of my bed when I've had bullet holes, and they've stood outside courts waiting for me to get 20 years. So I do not have to tell my child that this is not a nice life. I was arrested at 19, the court case went on for, and the remand went on for 2 years. By the time I was sentenced, I was just 21, and I got 3 years, 6 months for attempted murder, which was dropped down to carrying an offensive weapon with intent, malicious wounding, grievous bodily harm, and causing an affray. And I started off in the scrubs, and then I went to Coldingley, and I had a little bit of trouble, and they went to give me a psychiatric test in Grendon. And from that little spell in prison, it has taught me enough to keep out of it. 1 mile away from my house, we have Home From Home. We've got Belmarsh Prison here. It's the max security prison where I've done a year on remand in the special unit. It's where Sir Ronnie Biggs is right now. When I first arrived here at Belmarsh, I arrived in a wardrobe on wheels, you know, and I was put into a special unit which holds the 40 most criminally minded criminals in Europe. You know, it is the most secure, maximum secure prison in Europe. The unit inside Belmarsh is a prison inside a prison. It actually takes an hour and a half to get in to visit someone. You know, because the screws have to take all their clothes off and go for X-ray and put on sterile clothing, and you talk through glass on a telephone and all that. And it was the spookiest place I've ever done bird. So Ronnie Biggs is in here now, and I can't imagine anywhere worse for him to be. The hospital wing is even worse than the normal wing, because you know, in every other cell you get a nutter in the prison, but in the hospital wing it's just all nutters. You know, they're all turning into werewolves. It's very unhygienic. I once had a toothache that was absolutely killing me and bringing me to tears, nearly bringing me to tears. It was that painful. And when I went down to the dentist, I see what they said was a dentist. I see his assistant. And I lived with the toothache for another 2 fucking months till I got not guilty and come home. The European Court of Human Rights give you a £250,000 fine each year, the prison service, if they do something wrong. Well, Belmarsh have paid for that 5 years in advance. They've actually paid the fine 5 years in advance. So that means we know we're doing it wrong. We're breaking the European rights, whatever ones they were, so we're paid a fine in advance. But we intend to keep doing it wrong. Here's a nice little fact for you. There is a firearm cabinet in that prison, and if there is ever a 4-minute warning that the world is going to, we are actually going to get an atom bomb on it, their job is to come in and shoot everybody in the unit. They are to kill everyone in the unit. Go and check that one up, right? Because in case there's a bomb drops off and half of them escape, right? They are the 40 most people you don't want to escape if there's going to be a new world happening, and there is a job for someone in that prison to shoot everyone in the unit. God's honest truth. Because the actual unit is in there, you have, which is a holding place for people that are on remand waiting to go to court for the biggest crimes ever. So you had Charlie Cray was in there when I was there. You had the people that was involved in the, or allegedly involved in the Essex murders, the 3 people in the Range Rover. There's Iraqi terrorists in there, all the IRA are kept in there. Tony White from Brink's Mat. It's all the Yardies. It's the place. Bigger, better, nicer, newer. The fascination that the celebrity has with the underworld is, although they're both in different walks of life, the actual end result of being a celebrity or a gangster, you end up being treated the same way. You both have the doors open for you, you both have nice cars, you are both a little bit more money than everyone else, you are both, whether you're infamous or famous, it's still, the same. So you can actually relate an awful lot to each other. The only difference there is one of you is real and the other one is an actor, but he doesn't actually say he's anything else other than I'm an actor. The poor criminal himself has actually, whether he's wanted to or not, has been propelled into stardom, right? A lot of us have now learnt to turn that and use it for our own gain, which has got right up the authorities' nose, because that wasn't what he was meant to do at all. So you've obviously got nicer clothes, nicer cars, you can treat your missus nicer. Every man would, if he had that much money, do what I do for my missus. But he ain't. I can actually go, let's shoot off to Paris for a time. How much money do you want, darling? She'll go, that much. You understand what I mean? And the glamour side of crime is very, very, very glamorous. You cannot help but have an inner confidence when you're a professional criminal and things are going well, right? It radiates out of you, it oozes out of every pore, and you are buzzing, right? And money is definitely easy come, easy go. If you earn your money by going, stick 'em up, there's 80 grand and off you go. It don't matter that you spend it like that, because actually when you run out, you ain't got to go work and save it up again. You actually go, give us another 80. You understand what I mean? So it's easy come, easy go. And that is why they get into the habits of top hotels, I'll get a flat in Marbella, the casinos, the nightclubs, and there's more money. They've got no work in the morning, so they can go out every night. So they're out every night, Obviously, you've got a much higher living standard. You've normally got a better car. The fact that you are actually doing it in your community, because you're still living in your community and you're normally quite a nice guy, you actually help out a lot of people that don't actually cost you nothing. It's infectious to be popular. It's very infectious to be popular. And you actually become the local hero, because they've all actually been involved in a little bit of crime, but you've actually pulled through and got there. You understand what I mean? Only for a little while. Crime does pay until the day you get caught. If you're doing something that the rest of the world perceive as bad crime, right, you should at least do it. As soon as you know everyone is not at one about it anyway, you should at least do it with as much dignity, honour, style, respect as you possibly can. You should at least, you're doing something that's nasty and bad, so everyone would think. So you should at least do it with as much, and people like nice short haircuts and nice clean clothes and shiny shoes, and so do I. It's the man thing, it's the testosterone thing, right? It's the fight thing. Right, well here we are on a very busy Old Kent Road, the Thomas à Becket, probably the most famous boxing pub in this country, where they have all trained, from Lenny McLean and Roy Shaw, Harry Starbuck, Columbo, to Henry Cooper, Carlos Palomino and Roberto Duran. This is where I got knocked out cold by Lenny McLean in 30 seconds of the first round sparring. And it was on that day I decided boxing weren't for me. The boxing fraternity, like I've said before, has always attracted the villainy fraternity, and this being in very close to Bermondsey, which is looked at as the criminal Riviera for this country. This is where I actually saw the big names in the crime world that made me go, I want to be one of them, you know? Thomas and Beckett. The reason that the criminal fraternity is actually associated with boxing is, I'm afraid to say, that different sports have different class of people do them, and boxing, it attracted the lower class people, dare I say that, you know, the actual poorer person. It was cheap. You gave them a pair of boxing gloves and you sent the kids down to an hall and they stayed in there all night and punched the fuck out of each other. You understand what I mean? And that was easy to, you know, there wasn't the choices at the time of the different sports that there is now. You know, there was no synchronised swimming in the 50s, all right? And it is the common man's sport. Well, the criminal normally is the common man. It's not actually, we're actually materialising into a completely different type of criminal now. It's a computer whiz kid criminal, and they are not the, you know, that criminal, stick 'em up, is gone. It is a part of history. But the boxing gym attracted the gangsters because it was a fighting sport and it was cheap, and everyone that actually was any good at it lived on the council estate. You all knew him, so you all grew up with each other. And because years ago it was whoever could punch the hardest was in charge, you understand what I mean? You were the governor. Everyone wanted to do boxing. There's nowhere better to show off than in front of people you know. Please believe me, you can almost come when you knock somebody out in a boxing ring and you're standing over him like that, and there's 1,000 people shouting out your first name, Dave, right, and you have beat the man, and you could almost come. You cannot even feel the pain that he's been hitting you for the last 9 rounds. He was a professional villain. Joey Pyle is actually a very quiet man, right? But a very, very, very frightening side effects. I say no more than that. A very frightening side effects. You know, they tried so hard to actually, because he was becoming superstar, legendary in the gangster world, they actually fitted Joey Pyle up.
They came round my house, long story, they came round my house looking for Freddie Saul, who just shot a copper. And as they were searching the house, they asked me, I said, look, I don't know where Freddie is. I said, you're embarrassing me, keep on asking me this. You know? And then I said, if I knew where he was, I wouldn't tell you. Let's get that straight. Then they said, right, come up the nick with us. Took me up the nick, said, we're going to take you to Tintagel House to see the governor. I never got to Tintagel House. When I got to the local nick, they asked me again, where is he? I said, look, I told you once, if I knew I wouldn't tell you, but I don't know where he is. With that, he said, you're nicked. So what can I do? He said, conspiring to rob unknown persons somewhere in the metropolitan area. So how can you do me for that? He said, we found this gun in the boot of your car. I said, you dirty bastards. Like that. But with that, I was charged.
Joey Pyle was a very big shout in the 60s, and in South London was, you know, a friend of Freddie Foreman's, and he was another one that wasn't specialising in one thing. He was a villain. Right? He had the outlets to do everything.
I got found guilty a little while ago. I got 14 years. I've been over now about 2.5 stretch. You know, I was found guilty on a drugs charge, which was another fit-up. Of course, I've done wrong things. I'm not saying every time it's a fit-up, but the things I've done, I've been caught for. And they fit you up for things. But you know, people would say, like you might say to me, oh yeah, but Joe, let's be fair about it, you've done things. So you should take it with a chip on your shoulders. I mean, like, nothing is it? You've done something. Why grumble about getting caught with something you don't do?
Joey Pyle has ruled the underworld for more than 4 decades. He's been arrested more than 50 times and has been sentenced to 35 years in prison. He says he has no remorse, no conscience, and no regrets for anything he has done.
I mean, let me ask you a question. If you went home every night, right, in your car, on the piss, and you'd done about 60, 70 miles an hour, You never got caught. Every night you're doing it. One night you go home, you had a drink. And you're doing 30 miles an hour. And the old bill stopped you. Would you accept it? Well, last night I was speeding. Last night I was drunk. Of course you fucking wouldn't. You know what I mean? So it's exactly the same for anybody else. I mean, in 1960 when we got done for that murder, you know, me and my pal, for the shooting. Well, we've been asked by people, and I said it before, we've been asked who did it. I know I didn't, and as far as I'm aware, my friend didn't. If he did do it, I didn't see him do it. So we both got charged and we both got not guilty. So the bloke is dead, sure enough, and the case is closed. So as I said before, the verdict would stand that he just stepped in with a passing bullet. Because we didn't do it. I don't know who did.
Well, there were a lot of stray bullets in 1960.
Oh, I suppose there was, like, you know what I mean? But we dodged them.
He was a professional villain. And then when he tried to stop that and turn into a boxing promoter and a boxing manager, the fact that his past actually wouldn't let go of him. You understand what I mean? It hangs around your neck and drags you down and stops you. You know, he should have been Don King. You know what I mean? Everyone loved it to bits and all that, but the actual authorities were actually going no. You know what I mean? Because that meant if he took a world champion over to America, representing England would be a villain, and the authorities wouldn't allow that.
We can never be free, can we, if people govern others? How can we be free? It can't be a free world, can it? I don't believe in, I've never believed in any authority.
You've been your own boss.
Yeah. I've never really, I say I don't believe in it. Obviously, you've got to have some authority, maybe, but I don't respect it.
Joey Pyle was another leading member of the British underworld, and is still a very, very respected man. The art of being in charge is being able to put the right peg in the right hole. Here we are at the Albion. It's the Albion pub, Woolwich Church Street. This was my first big pub venture, which was very, very short-lived because I'd done a record, The Product of the Environment, with Tricky, and we had the photo shoot in here. And it was the launch, I had the launch party. Well, the Product of the Environment was a record done by me, Frankie Fraser, Tony Lambriano, Freddie Foreman, Roy Shaw, Charlie Richardson, all on one album. And we had the photo shoot in here, so there's normal little Woolwich bobbies that are flying about, little 21-year-old ginger spotty idiots, like, just looking, and then all of a sudden on one said night, this little pub here had all limos parked outside, and at 3 or 4 in the morning, it was still Ramo, so they've walked their head in just to see what's happening in here, and they've walked into Tony Lambriano, Frankie Fraser, Freddie Foreman, Dave Courtney, all sitting in the same pub, and they thought, like, we found HQ, you know what I mean? We found, like, Base Camp 1, they've all been here in Woolwich, you know what I mean? The whole lot of them planning a world domination plan. Anyway, needless to say, the next day, they took this pub off me and shut it down and said that they wasn't going to have a watering hole for Premier Division lowlife, the Albion. I actually helped organise a meeting in Maidstone Prison with Reggie Cray, and he met Frankie Fraser, who was an enemy of his, Charlie Richardson, who was definitely an enemy of his. There was Charlie Cray at the table, myself, and they had this very memorable meeting in Maidstone Prison where I'd never seen anything or heard of anything like it before in my life, where they all came in, they just pulled all the tables together, so it was like one great big long board table, and they sat on each other, opposite each other, and the last time they see each other, they was actually going like, you know, he killed his mate and he's killed his pal, and, you know, Reg was never sort of walking around to actually sort of make up, and he's incarcerated away, so, you know, a meeting was called, and everyone it was very, very, very emotional. I actually said nothing, I was just sitting at the end there, I was just a little young boy watching it in awe of the whole thing, and, you know, they was actually squeezing each other's hands, and, you know, we had no reason to fight each other. If only we'd have stuck, you know, if we knew now what we knew then, like every parent says, and when you're a gang boss, a don, a fucking whatever, you look at your men as your babies, or you should. They are your babies. You worry about their own life, their welfare, their well-being, their health. You understand what I mean? And when you want to, you try and give them advice and they don't take it, you hurt. Right? And they was actually sitting there hurting, talking to each other at this prison table, going, if only we'd have known then, if we'd have stuck together. We'd have stuck together, because what they'd done is they manipulated us two to keep fighting with the things that were saying in the media, so that us two could actually just go and shoot each other, and they come along clear up at the end. They actually used the media as a weapon to manipulate warfare between us, that there wasn't any, apart from you lived on the other side of the water, and they kept it that way. They deliberately kept it. They kept putting things in the paper that Richardson said this about crazy, Richardson, crazy better than Richardson. They deliberately, used the media as a weapon. I truly still feel honoured to be in their company, because I am not the one confessing to have done all these amazing things that they have done, and they have done them. That Frankie has actually done 40 years in prison, and so-and-so did actually do Brink's Mat.
In November 1983, the biggest robbery in British history took place at Heathrow. They got away with millions of pounds of gold bullion. The robbery was planned to perfection, leaving no evidence, no fingerprints, no identifications, and nothing traceable. It took police more than 9 months before they made their first arrest.
Now, the reason that the underworld, so to speak, was talked of and is still talked of as a very organised group of people is because when the war finished, we did actually, we all come home, and men were used to all pulling together and doing something as one, as a gang, as a troop, us, them. Lovely, beautiful morals, right, as long as you're all playing with the same rules. Right? And which is why you will never get crimes like the Great Train Robbery again.
On the 8th of August 1963, a team of 15 men, including Buster Edwards, Bruce Reynolds and Ronnie Biggs, stopped a Royal Mail train travelling from Glasgow to London and stole £2.5 million. Although none of the robbers were armed, the judge handed out an average sentence of a record 20 years, with the major players receiving 30 years each.
They actually formed a gang that was almost military, although they wouldn't like to admit it themselves. It was the military training that actually enabled them to hold a gang of men together like that with leaders and underlings, you understand what I mean? And things like, when the Crays come out, it was a completely, when the Crays were actually in their heyday, and the Richardsons and Freddie Foreman and all them were actually in their heyday, there was an awful lot of spin-offs from the way they behaved in the army as they did in the way they behaved as this gang, Certain people have got certain jobs, and the army have learnt that very, very quickly. You have specialised men. You are the explosives man. You are the deep-sea diver. You are the sniper. You are the cannon fodder. You understand me? And everyone accepted their part and went forward with it. And that is exactly how the criminal fraternity started to organise themselves. And then they realised that how more handy it would be that they could ring up now and get a couple of people to come down and help you out in a punch-up down the pub, but him down the road could actually ring up someone in America and have someone beat up in America.
Got the right film or not? Yeah.
No man matches his myth. No one. Well, this is Valence Road, where the notorious Cray twins used to live. There's a block of flats where their house is now, so they wouldn't recognise it at all, but they used to have a nice little council house over there. And this was their manor, And as I said before, it was a lot easier to run this manor when there was only 25,000 people living in it. Now there's 250,000, and they wouldn't listen to them, whoever they were. They actually lived in Valence Road, so I should imagine an awful lot of their battle plans were actually discussed and planned in this actual road, because they did actually use the Cray twins' front room as one of their main meeting places. So I should imagine an awful lot of misdemeanours and assassinations were plotted actually in this road. Not forgetting the Cray twins only actually got caught for the two murders. I'm more than 99.5% sure that there was a couple more that they never got caught for, Without any shadow of a doubt, the Krays' downfall was they run their unit on fear, and that only lasts for a little while, and it is addictive to actually have, you know. And what was very, very sad is like when these old men actually went to prison for a very, very long time, they went in and were genuinely feared. But because life stands still for you when you're in prison, you could do 30 years, and when you come out, you know, after 6 months, you've completely forgotten anything about prison. Just life carries on. But they went into prison as middle-aged men, and frightening little things they were, and they was getting the respect from people because they were frightened of them. And then over the years, they've actually got old, and now people are actually treating them that way because they're a bit of a monarch and they're nice and old and all that, you know, and lovely old fella. But a few of them are still thinking that I've got it mistaken, that respect that they're getting now is not because they're frightened of them anymore. It's purely a respect, you know. And a lot of them can't, you know. Some people get so they believe their own hype that they would at 78 years old write a book and go on the cover and go, ah, right? You know, still believing that was a frightening sight. You understand? I mean, they're trapped in a time warp, and they don't realise how pathetic they're actually making themselves look. You understand what I mean?
There was me, Johnny Nash, Bridget and Ronnie in the Colony Club, where George Raft was. And we're sitting down in like an alcove in the restaurant of the Colony. Then there was a big glass there. That was the casino, and this was the restaurant. So we got Ronnie Cray sitting there, Bridget there, Johnny Nash here next to me, and George Raft is here. And George Raft is talking to me and the boys, and he's talking about Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney and all the old. We're all having a right good laugh about it all, you know. And Ronnie's going, he's sitting opposite Ronnie. Oh, Joe, that's fantastic. He said, oh, we've had a good laugh tonight. Then all of a sudden, someone come in from the casino and they whispered in George Raft's ear, and he said, Sinatra just come in. So he went, oh. So he said, I better leave you boys because Frank Sinatra just come in. He said, I better go in this area. So as he's sitting next to me on the edge, I went, oh, go on, George, that'd be nice. Do what you got to do. And as he got up, he turned round. He went, listen, he said, I'll bring Sinatra in to see you boys. I know he'd love to meet you. I'd love to meet you guys. So, of course, he said, yeah, that'd be lovely, George. I went, that'd be fantastic. Ronnie Craze leaned across, grabbed my arm, shaking it. He went, no, George, forget it, George. So, listen, no, George, forget it. So I went, oh, sure? He said, yes. What's the matter, Ron? He said, he's a flash bastard, Joe. We'll end up in him on the fucking chin. Now, that is a story about what they was like, you know what I mean?
Ronnie was at first glance, the power behind the Cray twins. Right? Ronnie was the powerhouse, and although schizophrenic and definitely mad, he was the brains. And he had no qualms about his sexuality. You know, he had no hang-ups like that. He was someone that was able to go focus, right, and forget them other bits. And I should imagine with the ump, a very, very, very frightening man. We're now outside the very infamous Blind Beggar. This is where Ronnie Cray come in and give it to George Cornell straight in the forehead in front of a whole pub load of people. He paid for it dearly by getting 30 years, and this is the pub, right? It's commonly thought of as their local, but it isn't. But this is where it all happened, the Blind Beggar. I actually done the funeral for him. It came to nearly 14 grand, but I never saw any money for it. You know, it cost me 14 grand, but still I put that down to experience, and I was long-term going to gain out of it more than 14 grand's worth. So it was an amicable relationship. I'm not actually saying I got knocked, but he didn't know I was thinking that way. You understand what I mean? And I've done an awful lot of things, or because I had the file effects, I got an awful lot of things done for them, got for them.
In December 1966, the Cray twins allegedly helped Frank Mitchell escape from Dartmoor prison. On Christmas Eve, one of the people guarding him took him out of the safe house, telling him he was being taken to a new hideout. He climbed into a van parked around the corner and was shot dead. Reggie Cray, Ronnie Cray, and Freddie Foreman stood trial for the murder and were found not guilty.
Well, this is English and Sons in Bethnal Green Road, which is the undertakers that buried all three of the Cray family, Charlie, Ronnie and Reggie, and this is the building where I slept for 7 days with the body of Ronnie Kray, which was one of the most frightening experiences of my whole life. And on the day of his funeral, not that you can imagine it now, but this whole road was just a mass of people. There was everyone climbing up lampposts on the roof, the most beautiful array of flowers you'd ever seen in your life, just littered from here down to the next road. It was all cordoned off by the police, and 750,000 people came out to watch the funeral of the monarch of the underworld, you know. All I had was a security company. I didn't look at me as an army or a threat to society or anything like that. I had a security company of maybe 500 men working all up and down the country, and although I don't know every criminal in the country, I do know the main players in all the towns, and they could actually filter through to get to anybody if I wanted to. And I thought it was going to be the best bit of advertising I'd ever done or anyone could ever have with a security company. I thought, after this, I've got to be a millionaire with just, you know. What it actually done was the complete opposite. It actually brought me to the attention of the general public as, oh, this Dave Courtney. It made the police then look at me as, you know, Jesus Christ, who is this fella? It's a genuine, serious threat. That is a proper threat. You know, no one should have an army apart from the Queen, the police force and the army. You know, you can't be a private army out there, and not so much they're all criminals when they should be going no comment, no pictures and all that, and hiding in the shadows. They're actually standing out there on screen looking 500 times better than us. This is my army, you know, and if you've got better, show me. And they took it as a pure act of defiance, and from that minute on there was a genuine, massive, great big umbrella of crush David Courtney and all that's to do with Dave Courtney. But it was on the day I actually had chief meetings with the chief of police, and because of my cocky little attitude, I could see that he was getting a little bit hot under the collar, you know. And I did explain to him that we didn't want to be treading on each other's toes in the security arrangements, and that you know, unless he actually knew who was who, there's going to be 750,000 people out there. You could only get 200 people in the church, right? Did he know to say yes and who to say no to? You know, did he know to say yes, you can come in and kiss Ronnie on the forehead, and who to say no to? He's going to be saying yes to a greengrocer who's never met him, and no to a bloke who's been inside. You know, and these are criminals, would be criminals, have been criminals, would want to be criminals. You know, there are people that are not normally going to just walk down the side of the road and say hello to you, and now you're going to be refusing them, you know. And I think that your best job is just stay on the side of the road, hold the crowds back, and we will do absolutely everything else. And then he said that he wanted us to wear bibs, bright orange bibs, otherwise we won't be distinctive as security. And I said, look, some of these people have got £3,000 fucking overcoats on, and they are not going to sit there and put a silly looking bib on the outside. You know, you'll definitely distinct mine from them and mine from yours, you know, without any shadow of a doubt. They were, for their day, the best you could possibly get on that half of London. You know, the Kray twins were a formidable enemy for anyone, even the British police force. You know, they had their run, and the actual Kray twins that went to prison, I never knew because I'm too young. I was sitting in a Silver Cross pram eating a Farley's rusk at the time, but I've been put down as a Kray man because of my association with them, which truly led to no great benefits for me long term. But no man matches his myth. No one in the world. Nothing is ever as big as the myth about it, right? And they definitely wasn't. I definitely ain't. I can't, you know. But there's a few people that are out there that come bloody close, you know. And one of them being Freddie Foreman. As real as the myth. Here we are at the Prince of Wales, Freddie Foreman's old pub, and a kicking little pub in its day, I've got to tell you. And this is the pub that he was actually in and owned when they came along and arrested him for the Jack the Hat murder. And certain things have happened in this cellar which shouldn't happen in pub cellars, let me tell you, right? But it's still got a very a gangstery, local hard nut clientele, you know? Put it that way, if you know what I mean. Well, there's certain people that went down in that cellar that's rumoured that never ever came up. Put it that way, you can't get naughtier than that, can you? You know, it's a bit like a TARDIS. You went down there and no one ever came out. You know, it's pub cellars are very naughty places. right? And especially a few years ago, you know, when your pub was your HQ, it was your base camp 1, and this was Freddie Foreman's, and you don't get naughtier than Freddie Foreman, right? In his heyday, you do not get naughtier than Freddie Foreman, and that was his base camp 1. So in his cellar, most probably more things happen than anyone else's. He's a lovable geezer, you know. Like if you met him, not in a business world, and definitely not on the wrong end of him having the ump, you know, you would not meet a more pleasant, nicer fellow. Like, as all of these ex-criminals, you know, they're actually in the media at the moment, they're all very, very nice fellas, and genuinely very nice fellas. They're not hiding something, it's just at work they ain't. But you understand what I mean? When they're not at work, they are very, very nice fellas. And Freddie is as real as you get. He's a very intelligent fella. He's now going into all sorts of things in the film world. His son Jamie's a successful actor. Him and his wife are actually doing productions of things, you know, and he's deservedly in the #1 spot of who is who in the gangster chic world.
If you'd have told me 5, 6 years ago that I would be writing books and appearing on television, I'd have said you was fucking mad, you know, I thought he was crazy. But of course, it's just snowballed, really.
Yeah. It's like a supply and demand. If the general
it's folk history as well. It's something that people like reading about, and we're providing that.
Well, Freddie Foreman is, in my eyes, a deservedly #1, as real as the myth.
In the 1960s, Freddie Foreman ran the Prince of Wales pub in South London. It was the place he was arrested for the murder of Jack the Hat McVitie. Following his 3 brothers, he joined the army, but was thrown out. 7 years after the Great Train robbery, Freddie Foreman was cleared of any involvement, but found guilty of handling money from the proceeds and sentenced to 9 years in prison.
I could actually say that Freddie Foreman had and has still got natural leadership. He is somebody that I would, apart from the flamboyancy of myself, which Freddie obviously hasn't got, you know, purely down to a different era. You know, what's acceptable today was definitely not acceptable in the 50s and 60s.
I was a professional robber and went for big money, but that's an era that's died now. That you just can't do that anymore.
No, it's
you
a
can't
bit
be with the technology the way it is today. Nobody can pull out on the street and get away with any serious crime. Money. It's all petty crime and people who opportunists who create crime. Now, it's most of the children in London that are committing crime. Children today, you know.
Police computer, that is the Aladdin's cave for the criminal. I've had an awful lot of dealings with bent policemen in my life. They are a very, very important part of the professional criminal's armoury. A bent policeman or coppers that work on both sides for you, you know, is a necessity for the professional criminal, and what you learn from them is invaluable. You know, what tricks they tell you you can get up to and what they get up to, and, you know, actually enables you to be one step ahead, because you wouldn't have known what, you know, they do things like walk around a nightclub and pick up someone's dog end and then just put it at the scene of the crime. And in 2 months' time, you know, they say, well, DNA it, where was you last Tuesday, 2 months? You don't know. And they're saying, right, forget all the evidence, forget all that, unless you can explain how this dog end got in this bedroom, you're nicked. And your own solicitor would say to you, go guilty. Your own solicitor would say, don't fight that, you know, you'll get 6 years going guilty, 10 if you go not guilty, but you've got to get guilty, because there it is. And they sit there, the coppers, and watch. And now they've invented a law in the courts for knowingly concerned. Now you can actually be arrested for knowing about something. You understand what I mean? If you sat in here and we all discussed a bank robbery, and he was being followed, and he was being followed, and I was, and so and on the way out, so would you be. They'd say they had the meeting in the thing. It's knowingly concerned. And because you'd had to go no comment, same as the rest of us, you'd have done the year on remand. You understand what I mean? And if they check your phone bill that you've actually rung me up 3 or 4 times over the last week, and on one of the days I actually robbed the bank, you know, and I wouldn't say, oh, hello, I've just robbed the bank yesterday. I'd just talk to you as normal, but you wouldn't know. And then in there, when the evidence is put in front of you in a courtroom, you know, they actually make up the evidence. He visited him the day before, he rung him 2 hours after he'd done it, he was known associate and all that. You understand what I mean? It's so very naughty, very one-sided. I'm afraid the British legal system is very misrepresented, and they keep you naive. We're now at the Old Bailey, where I have fought and won some memorable battles, but all the big names in the British crime syndicate have been through this court here. The Cray twins, Richardsons, Kenny Noy, Jeffrey Archer, even Ronnie Biggs, right? The Yorkshire Ripper, they all went through this court here. And the Brinks Mat boys. It is the most intimidating court you've ever been in your life. It is a stage, you are up there acting for your life. You say one thing wrong, you get 20 years. So you are doing the best performance you have ever done, you know? It is a very, very frightening place, the Old Bailey. You don't learn anything in this life unless it hurts you. My personal favourite of firearm, if you have to have a favourite, would be the same one that was used to try and assassinate Seymour, is a revolver, right? A revolver is... It looks a little bit now as a bit of a dinosaur of a firearm when there's such new high-tech firearms in the automatic range like this. These little mufflers on the end, these are the things that's important today. These are the things that everybody wants, you know? The silencer. That's where the money comes into a firearm. Trying to get a silencer on the top. Everyone that actually pulls out onto the pavement and does a bit of work normally has one of these, you know, sawn off. The Vinnie Jones film Lock, Stock, with Lenny McLean in it, was based upon a true story of my own, where the two shotguns are concerned, which is where I bought two Purdy's on the phone and didn't see them and had someone cut them down for me and make two sawn offs, and when I got them back I realised that, you know, they were 200 grand's worth of gun, and I had instantly turned them into 150 quid's worth, you know what I mean, as a proper little intelligent move. There have been better career moves. You have to be prepared to do the prison sentence which your choice of weapon carries. And what I mean by that is, if you by choice are someone that carries around a knife, you have got to be prepared for any single solitary day at all. You could be whizzed off and do life for it, because if you went into your paper shop to buy some fags, trod on a geezer's corn and turned around and he started beating the living crap out of you, you would pull your weapon out and go, and if he died, you'd do 15 years because you trod on a corn. Right? If you hit a geezer up the arse in his car, and it's a brand new car, he jumped out of the car and started beating you up, you would, if you had it on you, go like that, and you would kill him. If you're someone that's even sillier than that, then uses and carries a firearm 24/7, you know, there is no need to carry a firearm 24/7. It is a tool for the job. A bricklayer wouldn't walk around the street with his trowel all day long, hoping to jump out and build a brick wall, and you shouldn't walk around with a gun. You also shouldn't walk around with a knife. You know, you get these little sort of flybees walking around all pumped up and they can knock you out with one punch and all that nuts. You know, they actually think they're proper bits of kit, you know, really tasty, but it's the 60, 65-year-old today with the fine effects that is the powerful man. His eyes are saying, I'm going to eat every single vein in your body. Tony Lambriano was a man that I met while visiting Reg one day, and he's greyhound racing mad. Like greyhound racing mad, and he's known for being staunch and being able to keep his mouth shut. You know, he himself would not tell you he was the biggest villain in the world, but he was wrapped up around the biggest villains in the world, or the biggest villains in the country at the time. And I dare say that if he'd have wanted to nod the right way, you could have got someone buried, you know what I mean? So you don't have to be the shooter to get it done. And a very, very nice fella, you know. He's actually now learnt very well how to direct the media in a way that you can benefit from it financially. And him and Freddie Foreman wrote a book together. He's got his own book out. It's going to be made into a film.
The history is this. It's something you can't just go out in the quiet and read about. Luckily, a lot of us come through and been here to write our life stories.
You know, and Chris, his brother, was someone that I was in prison with. And the first time I went to prison, he was my next door neighbour. And I'll never forget that one time we was in a place called Coldingley, and it's got electric doors and it all cameraed up, and when there's no one on the landing you can push a button, your door will open and you can go out to the washroom and go to the toilet and all that, and when you come back and your door's locked, then another one will open. And we used to pass tea bags around and all things like this. And I was walking past his room one day, Chris, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was up in his pants with the pillow, Radio 4, dancing around, you know, doing all the thing like this. And I just thought it was really, really funny and forgot all about it till the morning, and we was queuing up for breakfast. I was only a little boy then, I was only 21 years old. And anyone with a beard frightened me, you know. He's a man, right? And in the dinner queue one day, I just unthinkingly like, went, "I see you last night," you know, doing all the thing. And he just got so embarrassed that he literally picked me up under my chin, pushed me up the wall, and grabbed a spatula. And it was all like, you know, it was like a horror movie for me. I was going to be spatulaed to death. I mean, that's awful, isn't it? You know what I mean? Spatulaed to death. But he just managed to control himself, and I have been a Chris Lambriano worshipper ever since, you know, and he's gone very much into religion and means it. You know, he really has found saviour in the Lord, and, you know, he really genuinely means it, but his voice is saying, you know, Jesus loves you, and his eyes are saying, I'm going to eat every single vein in your body. You know, it's weird, right? Weird. The power comes with money. You don't have to be the best fighter in the world. You can employ a killer. Debt collection was actually a very, very respectable way to earn a living criminal-wise. You know, you could actually get arrested for some of the methods used, but it was very easy for me to put my Robin Hood hat on, right, when I was debt collecting, the same as anyone, because Mr. A has robbed Mr. B of £500,000 and I'm just getting it back, right? Whatever methods I use to get it back, I am justifying because I've got my Robin Hood hat on. You are the bad guy. The authorities, I'm afraid, don't look at it like that. You know? And as you get older, you learn different ways to get things done. And it's not always the brute force, kick the front door down and throw them around the front room that is long term the best way. You know, it is an awful lot more effective to actually wake somebody up at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting at the end of their bed with a belly on and your mate. You go, "Wait, listen, you know, about that £500,000. Shut up, love. All right, shush. You know, you're as easy to get for me as this, and I won't do that next time. I'll grab a bomb and leave you another belly button you didn't bargain on." All right, so pay the money, shut up, I'm leaving. I won't touch the kids, I won't eat no ornaments, all right, but pay it and leave. And when you're gone, because he has actually knocked the geezer and it is him that's in the wrong, the wife would be then taking on your job of like, listen, pay him, you know what I mean, pay the geezer, the kids, you know, and it actually long term that would be better than hurting him, because the fear of getting hurt is always more effective than actually getting hurt himself. And debt collecting has changed over the years, because it used to be for everything else, but now it's just drugs. And you're now being part of drug collections and drug dealing, and once again the violent level has really, really gone up, and most people would think nothing of using a tool today, and it's very, very easy to get hold of a tool today, and so the violent Richter scale is definitely up in the red at the moment. So the debt collecting isn't as easy or as honourable as it was before. The power comes with money. Right? Once you have a load of money, you don't have to be the best fighter in the world. You can employ a killer. I'm gonna bite a hole in your chest. Charles Bronson is a very famous prisoner who sticks up for people, who did stick up for people when he was allowed on the everyday landings, to the point of he would risk his life for your rights. If they cut short your visit, he would jump up and fight for you. And because he was an extremely powerful man, he's actually a very, very intelligent man, and also very, very gifted with drawing. You know, I don't know if you know, he's actually a fantastic artist, and every letter he sends you, he actually draws on the paper first, and he's actually became very infamous since being in prison, because some of his exploits, he was always up on the roof ripping slates off, and he got in with a publisher and has wrote a couple of books. And to people that have actually been in prison with Charles Bronson, they all hold him in a very high esteem, although some of the things he does would be classed as mad in his head or our heads while we was in prison. It wasn't mad at all. You know, the fact that they was actually locking you up and throwing your dinner under a door and beating you up every time you went to bed and pissing in your tea before they give it to you. And the fact that you got the ump about it and smacked one in the mouth and climbed up on the roof and threw a few slates off, right, you actually think in your own head that you are perfectly justified. But the media jump on it, take pictures of you from an helicopter, say you're a madman, bring you down, says you get another 20 years for it. When in your head it weren't It wasn't meant that way. And then the worst feeling in prison is this: you feel forgot. You feel that no one knows you're there. Well, if you ever do something that gets in the paper, that is such an exhilarating feeling that when you're in prison, 1,000, 1 million people have read about me. That actually could become addictive, and then maybe you could be guilty of doing some silly things just for that feeling of getting in the paper, and then realising at the end of it, that little outburst of let people know I'm here has cost you an extra 15 years.
Sent to prison in 1974 for armed robbery, Charles Bronson, real name Michael Peterson, has spent 27 years in various prisons and asylums. 23 of them have been spent in solitary confinement. During his time behind bars, he has staged 8 rooftop protests, assaulted more than 20 prison officers, and caused nearly £500,000 worth of damage to property. In his book, he wrote of how he once had an unlicensed bare-handed fight against a 195-pound devil dog. He is now locked up 23 hours a day.
When we first met, it wasn't on good terms. I was in the unit, and he was in solitary downstairs, and he'd heard that someone come into the prison and nicked his thunder a bit. Everyone's going, Dave, 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 and I had 2 gold Rolexes on. I had one for sale and one on my arm when I actually got arrested. And the prison officers that were down there were saying, we've got this flesh bastard upstairs, Dave Courtney. And I heard one day out of my cell, Courtney, I'm going to bite a hole in your chest and fucking suck the wind out of your fucking, proper, hello, Charlie. Tenerife, please believe me, is a naughty, naughty place. I was actually frequenting Tenerife quite a lot, and there was actually a little war brewing between these 2 gentlemen, I said. And on one of the holidays I had out there, I just went out there with me and 3 friends and all their families and the kids, when this Arab fella came in, and they all just flew across the dance floor and started giving this geezer a proper good hiding. Well, he went into a coma, and just before he went out, he said, it was Courtney and his boys. Well, I don't actually know that's been said. So I'm carrying on with the next day's holiday, I'm with my wife, my babysitter, Seymour, and my kids. And I walked in there, and a load of blokes jumped out and just pushed me against the wall. They grabbed hold of Seymour, and they held a gun to me, and they said, a life for a life. Right, a life for a life. And they tried to shoot Seymour in front of this whole nightclub. And I went to sort of walk forward a little bit. He took a shot at me, and I turned my back on him, and I was facing my missus, and she was holding my kids. And although this might sound like I'm trying to make myself be heroic, it is what happened. And the gun went off, and I turned around and looked at her, and I went, I've got to go and get him, haven't I? And I'm not giving any praise to myself here. I'm giving praise to my wife for letting me do what I should have done. Right, for making me do, instead of going, oh no, don't get involved and all that, no, don't. I turned around to her and went, I've got to go and get him, and I. So she went, yeah. I went, I really love you. And I turned around and I ran at this man. He took another shot at me that was bouncing off the floor. And the fact that I was running towards him, and all the other blokes was fighting with Seymour, trying to get him on the floor and bend his head down. And then they was trying to drag him out a back door which led down onto the beach. And he was walking out like this. And there's nothing worse in a situation where you've made your play, you're going to do your thing, and halfway through it, your missus goes, Dave, stop. Once you've gone like that, you're fucked. You understand what I mean? Once you've actually lost your tunnel vision of, I've got to get that, right, once you've done that once, you're slaughtered. And my missus allowed me to save my friend. And the fact that I was running towards him, shooting Joe Bloggs is one thing. Shooting Ronnie Cray is another, right? For some reason you think that, no, I'll give you 10 grand to shoot Joe Bloggs. You go, yeah, but I'll give you 10 grand to shoot Ron Cray. He'd die just the same, but actually the fact that it was Ronnie Cray would make you harder to, if he's going to bounce off, it'd be like Lenny, it'd just bounce off, right? That most probably what it was that saved me, because he was not into shooting me, which I didn't actually know at the time when I ran towards him, but she enabled me to save my friend. I turned around and just ran at him, and he took a couple of shots at me. I went to grab the gun, he hit me across the head with it. I fell on the floor, and when I got up, they'd all backed off trying to drag him down the stairs, and I just made another run towards him, and then they all ran off. And by this time, Seymour was quite badly beaten, like 30 stitches in his face and all that. And I took him then to the hospital. Well, in the hospital was the man himself at the bedside vigil of his son or cousin or whoever it was, and he's just seen Dave Courtney pull up with a load of blokes and come. So he thinks I've come back to finish the job on the. So he's like, you know, Mayday, Mayday, and the next thing we know, Seymour's in the casualty room, and all these, just like a film. It was like a film. It was all these black Mercedes pulled up, and they all jumped out with Uzis, and they've grabbed me against the car, and they've got my wife and my kids lying on the floor of this van, and they're holding gunpoint to them. The nurses were trying to push Seymour out of the window in the hospital, like the little louver thing, saying dangerous men out there. They called the police, and when the police turned up, I thought, I've never been so pleased to see a policeman in my life, I've got to tell you. But it all just went seriously bandy, because they just sort of turned up. They're Muslims as well, you know, they're Libyans and Moroccans as well, so they're talking to each other in their own language. These other guys haven't even put their guns away yet. And at that time, it was at that situation that the police turned up. Then Seymour came out, and they just started roughing him up in front of the police, and the police were just talking to these blokes, got me and Seymour against the wall, said that we were under arrest for the kicking of this kid, gave our hotel and passport documents to these bad guys, right, and drove us off down to the police station. Right? Other police cars turned up in between, and after about 5 or 6 hours they let me go, but they kept him in there for 4 days, and he was going backwards and forwards to court for 4 days, and this other little firm was waiting outside to actually take him away when he got not guilty. I've rung up for some assistance from England, because the other one that I had over here that was supposed to help me, when he heard that I was in trouble, he actually turned his phone off and pretended he weren't on the island, you know. So there was me looking after Seymour's wife. She's had to move out of her villa because we know that the other guys had given them our living accommodation. So I've got them all shacked up in another villa now. I'm on holiday with 2 things, right, waiting for him to come down. I can't even run off because someone's got to be there to let him out of to be there to collect him from court. The man didn't match the myth, as far as I'm concerned. Why did they call Mad Frankie Fraser mad? I've got my own views on that, but I should imagine it's because when he actually went to prison, and he was supposed to be with the Richardsons, the whole of the Cray firm actually got burred altogether. So the whole Cray firm went into prison, and then Frankie Fraser voluntary wanted to go into solitary confinement, and so would I if there was another 20 geezers upstairs in a rival gang. And through choosing to go into solitary confinement when he could have actually stayed up on the wings, he was put down as mad, you know. And over the years, like I say, you know, things get twisted and distorted and all that. And well, I wasn't there, was I? I can only go on what I've heard, but an awful lot gets twisted. And who am I to say? You know, he deserves his accolade for actually doing 40 odd years in prison and still being coherent, because after spending 40 years in there, you would end up a raving lunatic. You understand me? Whether you actually want to applaud someone that actually got caught for everything he ever done is another matter. You know, it's not like a 40-year sentence all in one go and, well, you done all right at the end. You know, he actually got caught for most things that he did, and if you want to applaud a man for actually getting caught for everything he did, then, you know, all well and good. I can't, I'm afraid. I was the one that actually brought Frankie Fraser to Maidstone Prison in that historic meeting. I was the one that actually put him down in my car. And him and Tony Lambriano were the very first legendary villains that I actually met. And I hero worshipped Frankie Fraser. Before I actually knew the character of the man and that, you know, I actually hero worshipped Frankie Fraser. He had everything that you dream about. He was only little, which was brilliant because most people are, you know, everything about him. But I'm afraid the man didn't match the myth as far as I'm concerned. It was enviable and romantic. I'm afraid respect is a past tense word, you know? Everybody in the era that they live think that their era was the best. If you had Glenn Miller, you went, oh, the music was better when it was Glenn Miller, and then it was better when it was rock and roll, and it was better when I was a kid. And crime, I'm afraid, was a much more honourable, respectable way of living than it is now. That's purely down to it's all drug money, it's all narcotics, and respect and honour among thieves goes out the window when greed enters the frame. And it does enter the frame where the drugs are concerned, because we're talking about millions and millions of pounds. the code of honour for the criminal is not actually written down anywhere, although it should be, because they were military codes of honour that normal men in the street were abiding by. You kept nice and smart, you know. You never grassed anybody up because of spying, torture and all that, like in the army. You stuck together. They were all very military things, but being acted out by the normal person in the street, and it was enviable and romantic and deserved the legendary status it is going to have as we get older. But they were things like, you never grassed anybody up. Well, that was because they've just come out of a war, and the word on the street was loose lips sink ships, walls have ears, one spy is more dangerous than 10,000 men. So when you've had a nation all growing up with that inbred into them, when the war stops and they're just carrying on with their normal life, a policeman's job is terrible, because every time he caught someone, he went, I ain't grassing anyone up, I ain't grassing anyone up. And they've learnt that the reason they were so staunch is because it's been inbred into them through the war years. So what they've actually done is, with a long-term 10-year plan, we'll breed it out. You know, we'll have so many programmes on television going, if you see this man, just give us a ring. If you told me that 20 years ago, there would be a programme on telly for Grasses where they had photographs of people when they was going, and if you see this bloke, just ring us up and we'll give you some money, and here's 2 more, just ring us up and we won't tell them who you are, we'll give you more money for that. If you told me that 20 years ago, I'd have called you a liar. I would not have believed it. But now you can have a grass line for car tax, grass line if anyone's at work, claiming social, on every single solitary television station, on primetime telly there's all these grassing is good. So they will slowly inbreed into the actual nation that grassing is acceptable. And when the government are hell-bent on doing something like that, you know, they actually get it done. You understand what I mean? And they will have every single street in the end with cameraed up, and everyone will, and it's like what they said Hitler was doing was really bad, getting people to grass on their brothers and sisters and all things like that, you know. But they're actually doing exactly the same. Everyone that's naughty respects the Nashes. Johnny and Jimmy Nash are the quiet ones where the media gangster's concerned, but I'm pretty sure in saying they were very, very real in their day, right? You know, and I can say that because people that I respect in that circle all respect the Nashes.
Jimmy, Johnny, Georgie, Billy and Ray. All brothers from the Angel in North London. Although well respected amongst the criminal fraternity, all of them have been convicted of murder.
You know, he's most probably the one man that you don't see at all the boxing dudes. You don't go, he's not out and about the same as everyone else anymore. He's definitely, you know, done that, and he's in a new walk of life. I think it's in property or something, and he's cracking on, and he's a man that is very, very clever, very, very, very clever man, and he understands very much so the downfalls of actually being associated with the criminal fraternity if you're trying to go on a straight goer's life. So he's made a proper effort to go that way, you know what I mean? And he's doing very good at it and all. But everyone that's naughty respects the Nashes. The murder is easy. Getting away with it is the hard thing. I mean, there's an awful lot of different factions in Great Britain that are definitely people to be reckoned with, you know, i.e. the biking fraternity. The Angels and the Outcasts are at war with each other, but as individual groups of men, you know, they have their own network of things to be done. They are international. They are, you know, very up on the old communicating game with the internet out and that, everything. You know, they run things. It's only in this country they're looked at as scruffy bikers, you know. Say, for instance, in Holland, they are the main force, you know, and in America, you know, they are a very, very seriously looked at unit of men, you know, the Angels and the Outcasts. The fact that you're on the run from your country doesn't necessarily make you a yardie.
Every month, a dozen or more Jamaicans are deported from Britain back to these streets for drug-related offences. But they don't stay. Many are back in Britain within weeks with a false passport, a new identity, and in some cases, a score to settle.
The publicity around the yardies is untrue. Every black man that you hit will say he's a yardie. Every black man involved in a crime, the police will say that they're a yardie. But no, the actual amount of yardies in this country is nowhere near what has been publicised. You know, the fact that you're on the run from your country doesn't necessarily make you a yardie. It's just someone that's come over here and wanted to come over here on holiday and never went back. You know, it doesn't actually make you a yardie. But a real yardie is a very, very frightening man purely for this. If he has already got a safety net under him, right, in case he gets caught for murdering you, because he is illegally in this country. So even if he shoots me and gets caught, the worst thing that will happen is he'll be deported. Right? Now, if all I was going to get for shooting you if I got caught was of being sent back to Jamaica, that would actually, I've got a list. You know? And the worst crime is I can actually go be sent back to Jamaica, then it makes you ever so brave, right? Me shooting you now, I might get 20 years for it. Slows you down a little bit, right? If the worst was the worst, I'd done 8 months on remand and got shipped back to Jamaica, that makes you very brave indeed, doesn't it? And that is a lot of where their strength comes from. Plus, they cannot help feel superior in the violent stakes because they are naturally living in an environment where killing and stabbing and fighting is an awful lot more ferocious than it is over here. So when they come here, it's like, you know, the wolf and the lamb. They are the quiet ones. The Chinese are a completely different kettle of fish altogether. They are the quiet ones. I've actually been witness to them showing me how they punish people when they took me downstairs to an underground car park and shot someone cold-bloodedly through the chest while he was taped up in the back of a transit. Now, I know how cold they are. Anyone who pulls the wheels off their aeroplane before they crash into it has got to be a bit nutty. And one of my first prison encounter was involved with the Chinese in a Chinese restaurant where a fight broke out. They all started coming out, the chef and the waiter and the cook with a big knife, and it was me. You know. So, like, focused as you've got to be, I was on the man with the sabre, and I was just like run forward to actually grab the hand with the knife in it. And no matter what you see on telly, no disrespect to Kung Fu whatsoever, but all that, you know, they do hit you 4 or 5 times before you get them, but it's normally a 7 or 8 stone man hitting you, right? It's no big thing, please believe me, right? Especially if you're going for a geezer with a big knife, you ain't feeling all them on you until the morning, right? And one good smack from an 18 stone geezer normally. So it's as good as 25 good fucking karate chops around the back of the head, you know. And once I actually got the knife in my hand, everyone sort of jumped back a little bit. He stood on the counter, and I've got my hand, which is 2.5 foot, the knife, which is 2.5 foot, and he's standing on the counter. And I went, well, now what are you going to do? Now what are you going to do? And with my hand on my heart, right, he jumped on me. He jumped on me like that. While I was like that. Oh, fuck. And then it all sort of slipped into turbo. They all went mad, started picking up dinner knives and attacking me and going mad. And the bloke came out with a big saucepan full of fat and get out my shop. And I went bump, and he just went crack. And then he melted, and there was all the big fights went on. And then there was one bloke left who had an axe about as big as that, cut out of one piece of stainless steel. The axe and the handles all cut out of one piece of stainless steel. And I think it was because I was brought up in the Bruce Lee era. As soon as one of them make a little sort of chicken noise, you automatically assume they can do kung fu. You know, as soon as a Chinese bloke goes, hi-ya, you just wait for him to jump up into a conker tree or something, you know. And he was like low with this chopper going like this, and I was actually, for 30 seconds of my life, I was actually living a true life film. I was fighting for my life in a sword fight with a man that, given half a chance, would take my leg or head off. He thought I'd killed his friends. A genuine sword fight to the death. I almost expected Count Basie to be in the corner going dan da dan da 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 da. And as I think of it now, I can tell you every single movement I made where his feet went, and because he had them little wicker basket shoes on, he was going back like that, and he walked into the fat that the other geezer had spilled on the floor, you know, and then went so dan. Courtney won, China never. They were made to fight. The question that is asked of me most is, who is the best fighter, Roy Shaw or Lenny McLean? They are both prize fighters. They have both come up through the ranks, and Roy Shaw, more than Lenny, has been a bit of a villain as well. You know, he's a very well-respected bank robber, and they had some memorable battles. But I hate to actually be a sitting on the fence person, because please believe me, I don't. If I don't have to, I don't mind coming down on one side or the other. But that has got to be the nearest thing to a draw that you will ever get.
Roy Pretty Boy Shaw became renowned as a bare-knuckle boxer. His fights with Lenny McLean were described as amongst the bloodiest of the century. In 1963, at the age of 27, he was sentenced to 18 years in prison for his part in a security van raid. Amongst Roy Shaw's party tricks are putting a pool table on his back and eating champagne glasses. Whilst in Broadmoor, he was branded the most dangerous man in the penal system.
They are two awesome fight. They were made to fight. All right, you get people put there on this earth that are gifted at one thing, and them two were made to fight.
Lenny McLean has been described as one of the greatest bare-knuckle fighters of all time. He has been shot twice, stabbed, had his nose broken 4 times, and broken his hand 15 times. He starred in ITV's The Knock, The Fifth Element, The Craze, and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. In July 1998, Lenny died from cancer of the brain.
Lenny McLean was, in his day, awesome. You know, awesome. But if you actually are lucky enough to see any of the Lenny McLean and Roy Shaw fights, you know, anyone that could take 1 or 2 digs off Lenny McLean, I would take my hat off to. Right? I actually sparred with him once and lasted a quarter of a round, where he punched through both of my arms, and I hit myself so hard that I knocked myself out. But Roy Shaw and Lenny McLean were, they actually brought prize fighting into the forefront. They actually brought it into the public eye. They were the stars of the day, and deservedly so. And although Lenny's dead, Roy Shaw is, I don't know how old Roy Shaw is now, but he would still batter the living daylights out of 999% of the people I know, me included. You know, a machine. He was just born to punch. He does for a living whatever I told him to do. He was one of the naughtiest. Yeah, he's a very naughty boy. He's a friend of mine. He's now doing modelling. You know, since the film, and since we've all gone on this little gangster chic thing, you know, Seymour is now modelling and getting film parts and doing very well. You know, Brendan and Terry Turbo have actually benefited most so far from the new little world that I'm living in. You know, and I've known him since I was 13 years old, and he would expect me to run at a man with a gun for him because I preach that. And when it actually happened, right, I have to do it. You understand what I mean? And the only thing that would ever stop me was the fact that my wife and children were there. And when the first bang made me go, ugh, I don't know why. Not that he wouldn't shoot me in the back, but I'm standing there looking at my missus. And when I've really got to go and get him, and she went, yeah. I said, I love you. She went, what? And I turned around and I ran. And I'm so pleased I did. I'm so pleased I did. And Seymour will write about it in that book. That is his story in the Firm book. Because it was a very, very harrowing experience for him. You know, the actual kicking, the nearly getting killed, to being locked in the prison with everyone, and they could actually be got while he was in there, and, you know, thinking, like, I don't even want to get bail, how am I going to get out of court? You know, it was a very harrowing experience for him, and you speak to him about, you know, the most memorable time in your life, that will be it. I think the whole Biggs story is very, very, very sad. Ronnie Biggs, maybe not the brains of the outfit, but if anyone's ever slipped into a role perfectly, then he has. He plays the British man on the run over there in Brazil. Absolutely fantastic.
Ronnie Biggs escaped from Wandsworth Prison in July 1965. After hiding out in a flat in Kennington, arranged by Freddie Foreman, he then fled to Germany, where he had plastic surgery to his face. He was alleged to have been awake throughout the whole brutal operation.
Right, he is a proper gentleman again, a very, very, very funny man, and sadly, you know, his illness has ended up bringing him home, where he's been used as a bit of a political pawn, but I'm sure he doesn't care, because he's not in any fit state to actually think properly at the moment, and it's a very, very sad ending to a really, really lovely story, because that man played the part of the the Englishman out on the run out there, you know, so well. So well. He was almost royalty in Brazil. You can no longer be a criminal because they will catch you. The gangster is a historical figure, like a cowboy, knight in shining armour, pirate, gangster. It is gone. We no longer walk around with, we no longer go, ha, right? And we no longer have respect in the criminal world. We no longer go, draw, you know, and then we no longer go, right, you cad, and we no longer have an awful lot of respect for each other. I'm really sorry to say that, but that is the truth. And it was the downfall of the British crime world, right? The lack of respect is what brought it all, made it all messy and unsightly. I think the intervention of the rave scene into this country was the nail in the coffin on the actual honour among thieves, you don't grass your mate up, you know, all that. The drug culture actually destroyed the British gang culture, because how can you expect someone to actually, you know, when you get someone that will actually, he wouldn't grass you up, but if you hold him in a cell for 2 days, he gets cold turkey and he'd grass you up. And how can you, you know, the criminal's best weapon is being able to suss somebody out, you know, choice of judgment, right? But how can you work out someone that he don't even know who he is half the time? You understand what I mean? And drugs are making people extra brave and going there, where under normal circumstances they wouldn't. And you can look at a man and go, he wouldn't have the arsehole to do that to me. But on Saturday night he might, because he's had and he's running around. You understand what I mean? So if someone would actually nick their mum's video to go and get their next fix, how do you expect him to hold out for you in a police station? Do you understand what I mean? So the drug culture actually knocked an awful lot of the romance around crime. It knocked it all sideways, right? You know, 20 years ago you had a room full of criminals. You'd have an hijacker, a bank robber, a safe cracker, a cat burglar, a long firm bloke. You know, now you've got drug dealer, drug this, right? And you could almost stand up in school and say, my dad's a bank robber, and it be respectable, right? If you understand what I mean, you know, my dad is villain, right? But to stand up and say, my dad is a drug dealer, is not the same thing. You understand what I mean? And when you had them morals, because they were all army morals that normal men in the street were keeping in their everyday life, that was honourable. It was, you look after your lady, you know, whatever. And people try to buy that class today, but you can't. Right? You actually buy flesh. People turn into criminals that didn't actually know that they were actually being a criminal. What it is you might like a little bit of cocaine, and you're only earning £150 a week, take home, and you go out on a Saturday night and you have to spend £50 on a gram of Charlie, and then because it's a sociable drug, you keep going to the toilet and you go, well, one line, so you only actually have half a gram. So you spend £50 for half a gram of Charlie, because you actually give half away. So if you want a gram of Charlie, it's £100. Now you're only earning 150. Now once you've bought it off this geezer for about 10 times, it will say, why don't you buy an eighth and make, you know, then make three, you buy 3 grams, sell 2 and get his one for nothing. Touch. And then once you've actually had 2 for sale, after about 3 or 4 weeks, people know you've got something for sale, so they start coming up and saying, have you got any? And then you think, well, I could have sold 7 wraps. And then all of a sudden you are now a Charlie dealer. Well, you're earning £225 a week, but you're only taking home 150. On that one Saturday night standing under the stairs at that Pacific nightclub, you've took home 700 quid. Now your head will not allow you to get up and go to work for 5.5 days a week to earn £250 when you know Saturday night you can go and earn 700 quid. So you only do that for about 3 weeks and you give up your day job. Then, in the police's eyes, you are a professional criminal. Not in yours, because it's all still, but you're still driving down the club with it in your pocket. You don't actually realise you're doing nothing wrong until they actually go, you're under arrest. You know, you're standing there, you're normally giving the doorman a few quid, and you might as well go, Charlie, ease, really well, joints a pound, because they're warning you if there's any police coming in. You know your regular customers. You know, you every time Mr. Popular invited to all the parties, everyone wants to shag you. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, you don't realise how the police are looking at you. Right? You're just cracking along the same as you are. I'm still a postman sort of thing, but I do, you know, and then all of a sudden someone goes, oi. And you've got 30 wraps of Charlie in your pocket and a load of phone numbers on your bill at so-and-so, and you've been followed for 3 months, and you know, and you get 10 years. And you didn't know you was a criminal at all until it all actually jumped on top of you. You know, understand? I mean, so you try telling him that crime don't pay while he's got his BM convertible and little flat in the Docklands and allowed for the money and 4 birds a day. He'd say, what are you talking about? Talk to him in 3 years' time. And everyone gets caught. Everybody gets caught. Dealing drugs is more addictive than taking drugs. Right? Dealing drugs is 500 times more addictive than taking drugs. You can look in the mirror when you're taking drugs and go, I better stop this, it's killing me. Right? But when you're earning £4,000 or £5,000 a week, to actually go, well, I better stop this, is very, 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 very hard. And I don't know anyone, I do know a few people as it happens, but a very, very large majority of people can never stop it. And the only thing that stops it is prison. No one will be able to have a long reign of a long criminal reign ever again. You know, you'll never get the Lenny McLeans and the Roy Shaws being the best fighters, you know, and the hardest doorman, because they was in an era where if you lost a fight at the door of a club, he sacked you and got a better fighter. Now they're in an era of, if you actually hit a customer for any reason at all, you're caught on video, he has to give in your name, address, you've got your fingerprint, your telephone all over yourself. So if you hit somebody now, you're sacked, and they get somebody else and you get arrested. But in their day, if you didn't win the fight, you got sacked for not winning it. So it'll actually slowly wheedle out the hard men, and criminals are the same. You know, now there's going to be at one stage in the evolvement of crime, you could walk into a bank and go stick 'em up, and a bird leant over a little bit of glass and filled up your carrier bag, and you went down the landing and took it all and then escaped, and a copper chased you down the road with a whistle. And if you made it to that big blue box at the end of the road, he got a Wolseley hot on your ass 20 minutes later, you know. But now there's the tills that go up everywhere's got cameras on them. The police cars are driving around with machine guns. You've got helicopters. You know, it's a completely different era. You can no longer be a criminal, because they will catch you. Now they have now safety netted it for themselves and actually put out all the sort of changed all the laws and worked out that they can now bug your house, and you know, and they will catch you. And you cannot no longer ever be what is perceived to be a villain or a criminal. It is gone. It's history. Well, when you're talking about underworld legends, I don't think you get any bigger than Freddie Foreman and Tony Lambriano, right? And the book sales will actually show you that. And we're lucky enough to actually have them here in front of you. Freddie Foreman, Tony Lambriano.
I do.
What lovely fellas they are. What lovely little fellas they are.
Yeah.
Well, what I want to ask you is, really, what is the difference with crime today and crime when it was
Lack of
your
respect.
living?
Lack of respect, Dave. That's what the problem
To who?
is.
The police or the public?
Well, to all.
To people in general, yeah.
People in general, yeah. I mean, as you know, it's all about respect. And you come from that angle, like we all do. We come on the streets of London, where and we've all been down that road in our own way. But I mean, without the respect, you're nothing.
You've actually, with the actual sort of the world knowing who you are now, you've actually got worldwide respect now more than any other. You know, you are looked at in every other country in the world as, say, John Gotti would be looked at in this country, you know, because of the internet and the papers and all that. Freddie Foreman and Tony Lambriano are now worldwide sellable products, you know, and that is the way to go forward with our life now, don't you think?
Well, that's what's happened with the media, isn't it? They've made you into this. We had no, I mean, I didn't have any wish to do this at the beginning. I know, if you'd have told me 5-6 years ago that I would be writing books and appearing on television, I'd have said you was fucking mad, you know. I thought he was crazy. But of course, it's just snowballed, really.
Yeah. It's like a supply and demand.
Yeah.
If the general
it's folk
public...
history as well. It's something that people like reading about, and we're providing that for them.
It's like this, like Freddie Foreman, Dave Courtney, Tony Lambriano, Roy Shaw, people like that. They've got that respect. They come off of the streets of London. You live that life, and that's where it's coming from. But we didn't instigate it. It came behind us. I mean, after all, most of our years was in prison.
Yeah, but what people are fascinated by your people is because of the way the world has changed. They are never going to be, or never going to get a chance to get any more Freddie Foreman, Lenny McLean. They're not going to be given the opportunity.
I don't ever see
the cameras everywhere and all that. You ain't going to be.
Well,
bank robbers,
I was a professional robber and went for big money, but that's an era that's died now. That you just can't do that anymore.
No, it's
you can't be
of,
with the technology the way it is today. Nobody can pull out on the street and get away with any serious crime. Money. It's all petty crime and people who opportunists who create crime now. It's most of the children in London that are committing crime. Children today. You know. and it's all drug related, most of it.
And that is what's got. That is what's ruined the respect and honour among thieves. The drug thing and the massive amounts of finance involved in the drug thing has knocked all the comradeship on the head, because there's so much money involved. Greed's crept in, isn't it?
But also remember, Dave, banks don't carry the money, and security vehicles don't carry the money they used to. It's all done by check and computers and all the rest of it now, so it's a different type of crime scene. But the glamorous side of it is not in that. The glamorous side is what was going on at that particular period of time, and we're all involved in it.
Do you think that the knock-on effect of being, for want of a better word, war children, right? You actually grew up with the morals of walls have ears, loose lips sink ships, and the whole nation grew up with a grasp of something really terrible. And
so you never trusted anyone in uniform.
But you were all sort of military-ish trained. Do you understand what I mean?
The very patriotic. It was very patriotic.
And the National Service was in there, Fred, as well, wasn't it?
You fight and die for your country. I'm talking about the war.
And you fight and die for your firm.
A little bit.
Yes. The same kind of military.
And if you got captured by the Gestapo, you never fold under
the fingernails out, and you didn't tell the secrets.
A lot of people have said to me, like, during the war, you'd have been given a fucking medal, never mind about a fucking sentence, which is true, which is fucking right. You know what I mean? So it comes from that angle.
Well, it's all the lack of that. That not actually being installed into the youth is what's brought up the lowest.
It starts in the home, doesn't it?
Without a doubt.
Right, but what that's actually opened up for people like ourselves is the want for things like this, right? The want for things like that, because it's just like buying a cowboy book or a pirate book or a knight in shining armour book. Like the day of the gangster, the villain, is finished. It is a part of history. There isn't any more of them, right? And so you would buy history books, and that's what this is. We're actually now calling it a true crime book in this day and age. But what it is, it's actually a history book.
Yeah, it is.
They'll go down that road. You're right.
When you're actually not here, please God, that never happens. Right? A lot of the criminals have lost an awful lot of respect and honour among thieves and all that. But the police have actually dropped down in their standards as well, haven't they? You know, like the clump ran a year old from the copper and behave yourself. That policeman around no more now.
7 years at a minimum, isn't it?
Yeah, you know,
so that anything goes there, isn't it? So I mean, and that's a situation. It's never going to improve. It's got worse.
So I think the police force as a whole, and it's I mean, it was crooked in our day, but it's more respectable today because there's women involved in police. I think it's a good thing because a man can't, a police officer can't jump all over a fella with a woman police officer watching now. It's not the same thing as they can't get away with what they used to get away with.
I've seen some of them police women. They can jump all over you.
They're worse than the men.
Well, maybe, but I've not experienced it.
It depends what angle
As
you're coming
for genuinely hard men, what today's society would call an hard nut is nowhere near.
Oh no, it's a different league.
The sort of hard nut that
you're talking about the Raw Shaws and the Lenny McLeans and that. I mean, they were fighters. They were fighting men. You ain't got that man no more, but you've got some good young'uns coming through.
He was a bit. Oh, wait a second. But I mean, he wasn't a man. He wasn't a criminal. He was a fighter and a doorman and things like that. But he wasn't.
No, he wasn't
out on a criminal.
He wasn't a criminal.
No,
but as an hard man, he can actually go down in the history books.
He was the toughest, strongest man around at that time. Yeah, he was, no doubt about that.
I mean, they built their whole reputations on that, and that's where they're coming from. But I mean, the fight.
What about weaponry in today's everyday life? Is there more guns then because the army have just finished? Or
I mean, there's plenty of guns about after the war. There's thousands of guns. Yeah,
there's a lot around now.
They all took them home after they put on the civvies that they kept hold of them, and but as you say, we never had Uzis and things like that, and shooting in the street and the drive-by shootings and things like that. I mean, if you did, if there's anything that had to be done, it had to be done very personal, and I don't think I want to go down that road.
How big of a brick wall was the actual Thames, the north and south? Like, how big of a? Because it isn't there today, right? The rave scene has actually knocked that in the head because everyone now the youth actually go to the Ministry of Sound because it's the South or Stringford. The youth actually travel now, so let's knock that out.
By your manners then, Dave. You never went across your manners, your borderlines. Now it's an open. It's open. And that is to me a better thing in a way. I think that's better. It's not the arguments going on and what's he doing over here and all that. I think it still goes on a little bit, but not like it was. I think it's a good thing. I think you're responsible for that, bringing that together a bit. I'll say that.
Well, we used to I mean, I went anywhere in London. I didn't worry where I went. I didn't worry about anybody.
No change
But
here.
no, I'm still the same. You know, I can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But
but you're one off, Fred.
It was a big
that
thing,
sort of thing.
You're not the
Once
norm.
you cross the water, you cross that little bit of river, and even people spoke differently. They used a different language, different words and different slang words and everything. It was, you know, and you could. I can even do that today. I can tell where a fella comes from by the way he speaks.
Yeah.
How important in your growing up is prison? It is a college.
Well, I mean,
How
it's
important?
like
Can you put a word on that?
If you was come from a money family and you went to Eton or Cambridge or wherever, but prison, you know, for the hard-working family and the kids who were trying to make something of themselves and had no qualifications, no education, very little education. That was our university of crime.
It taught you men.
It taught you how to go and get
Let
a
me
pound
put it this
note.
one, I'll put in a nutshell. It's an education you don't ever want, but if you've got it, use to your best ability.
Any day you was in a cell and I said, do you want to go home? You'd have gone, yes.
Yeah, of course.
As soon as you've now done it, what you've learned in that little spell of time is invaluable.
Oh, invaluable.
And
that's
never ever.
That's when you get the men from the boys.
That's
as
right.
well.
It sorts it out.
You know.
I mean, we've all spent many
People are
years
under
of
the
our lives
impression
in
that you go to prison and you come out really clever because you've learnt loads of new crimes. That's not it, is it?
No.
It's actually you've learnt human beings. You've learnt men.
Understand
men.
Live with people.
Yeah.
That's why old men say things like you should have a conscription. They don't mean the youth should actually go to war. They mean you should all get put in a room where it don't matter if you're a millionaire or a tramp. You're all sleeping on the same mattress, wearing the same
like
clothes.
national service.
That's
I
it.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I've always said it.
I think that
Fred.
they could introduce that. I think it'd do the country a
Do
lot of good.
a lot of good.
This
Do a
is
lot
when
of good. I'd agree with that.
all the testosterone is running around your body, and the kids are at their most dangerous in their teenage years, their early years, aren't they? It's like they like to bang you up till you're over 40. Then you start to mellow a little bit. I think
I think they are your most impressionable years, the 18, 19, 20s. The rest of them you can get away with, right? But if you can actually get hold of a youth and almost military train him.
Do you know I look for them now and again where I live? I look for one that I can turn around and say, I like to educate you with the way I think. But you can't do it.
Well, you did it to me, thanks.
Dave, there's some you can do it with. You're one off. You're different. They're not all like you though, remember that. You were brought up on the streets like me and Fred. It's a big difference.
I was lucky enough to have it a little bit easier than you and Fred.
Well,
I was
it
lucky
could have
enough
been
to have
the
a
other
little
way.
bit
Let's
easier.
get it right, it could have been worse. It could have been worse.
There for the
There for the grace of God go on, I was saying.
But what I'm saying is this. Is it a crime, all right? Is it a crime that if there is there is a supply and demand in everything?
That's not a crime.
Right? No,
books.
that's right.
Not a
But
crime.
because the media have to take the high moral stance, they're not allowed to actually
publicise
promote that, right? But if there is a demand for, 1 million people want to buy these books, right? Between a pair of 1 million people want to buy these books. Is it a crime to actually write one?
No.
Because it's been portrayed.
It's your
as that,
life's experiences.
Well,
it is a history
Well,
book.
of course it is, but the history is this. It's something you can't just go out and acquire and read about. Luckily, a lot of us come through and been here to write our life stories.
So there's an awful lot that ain't.
And there's an awful lot that ain't. That's right. We're the lucky ones.
I mean, when you come out of prison and someone, we didn't go to them and say, oh, we want to write our book.
Never once.
People, they hunted us down, they drove us mad. And then, of course, if you come out of prison and there's a very little cash about and they smack a bit of cash in your hand, well, any man in the street would go and write a book. If
But let's put it this way, we give Dave Courtney a
anyway.
job, or Freddie Foreman, or Tony Lambrion, or Roy Shaw, or whatever. Like, where could we go? Who give us a job?
Tupperware dealers.
Tupperware dealers? It could be. Never know. You never know. But looking at it basically,
What it's actually done is this. I mean, you've got to agree with this a little bit. There are certain people around that have got fantastic books inside them, but because they haven't got the ability,
that's right.
because they haven't got the ability to express it, it don't work. And there's other people, i.e. myself, who has done a quarter of what you gentlemen have done. But because I am a good storyteller, I'm under no illusion. I'm under no illusion of exactly what I'm about. But because
you're here,
you're here. And over there, you will see today's. This is Baz.
This is Baz.
Oh, really? He ain't wrote a book yet. He's got a colouring book. Baz has got a colouring book. You get magic markers with Baz's book.
Good man, Baz.
I look after these guys. Well, I try to.
Yes.
Drive them about, take care of them. These guys are basically showing me the way forward. From Freddie, Tony, and Dave.
There's certain people you can bring along and introduce them to our type of lives. And Baz has come along, and he's and me and Dave, Freddie, and the boys, and that. He's one of ours.
Showing me the way forward.
And what I mean by the words, one of ours, is I'm saying something there, and that's important to remember that.
Yeah.
It's
See, an awful lot of, and not that I actually meant this to be that way, but the actual colour barrier has now broke down in the British Premier Division criminal was obviously, because it's Britain, predominantly white. You know, the big names are predominantly white, but because England is very multiracial now and it's an island, it ain't joined up to anyone else. When they're here, they stay here. You know, I'm right in saying that, you know, today's Premier Division criminals are not all English. You know what I mean? There's a multicultural society, and there's a man there that's as black as the Ace of Spades that would actually stand in front of these and get shot for them. You know what I mean? What does that say for you? I mean,
it says it all,
I mean, these guys treat me very much like their family. Very much like.
You ain't gonna get shot, right?
I like to think that the life of crime is now behind all you guys, and you know, these guys have got a lot of morals and a lot of principles, and you know, I think these guys represent a lot of yesteryear and a lot of today as well. You know, they signify a lot. You know, got a lot of morals.
We like to instill that in the young people.
At the time, Robin Hood, Jesse James, Sir Lancelot, Nelson, you know, they was all looked at by the authorities as criminals until well after they are dead, and now they are dead, they are folk legends. Right? These are actual Robin Hoods that are still alive. They are still Jesse James. They are still these are the genuine article. You understand what I mean? These are, you know, our kids will be going, well, there will be films and comic strips, and you know, these are the real ones that you're speaking to that are still alive. They are history books, you know. Robin Hood wrote about Robin Hood when he was alive. No one would wanted to know about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Very much so.
And you want to see him with a bow and arrow.
He was at the Battle of Hastings.
At least we've still got a bit of humour. No matter what's happened in our lives, we've still got a bit of humour in ourselves.
But I will say, Freddie, Tony and Dave, they have ethics. They have morals and they have standards. You know, regardless of what the media may have said or what they say today, these guys, I sit with these guys, I eat with these guys, and these guys have standards. They've got principles, and I say they're second to none.
Well, I can't say no further than that.
And that is it.
Yeah.